Hi, it's Ben here from Gym Club Solutions and I am with Dec. He's going to be the gymnast for the day, and what we're going to be showing you today is how to do the muscle up on the rings and all the steps and stages that you're going to need to go through. So we'll start off by Dec showing us what a full muscle up will look like on the rings. Perfect. That is exactly what the muscle up should look like on the rings. So before you even start muscle ups on the rings, you want to make sure that the gymnast can do 5 full pull-ups. I would suggest by doing these on the rings to start with. So he's going to start off in a full hang, so he's got straight arms, straight legs. He's going to pull himself up, trying to get his chest towards the bottom of the rings and back down again. So he's going to show you 5 pull-ups. As he stops at the bottom, they're nice and controlled. The rings aren't swinging back and forwards. He's keeping his body tight, his core is tight. This is great. So before he should be able to do a muscle up, he's going to need to be able to do clean pull-ups. So once you know that the gymnast is able to do 5 pull-ups on the rings, we also need to know that they can show a really good support and be able to do some clean dips. So Dec's going to show you what that should look like. So here he's got a straight body, you can see his neck, he's really tall, his legs are straight, and once he can show this shape for a good 10 seconds, you're able to then start having a look at the dips. So in a dip position, his shoulders come forwards, his shoulders should go slightly below his elbow, and then he pushes back up again. So his body stays tight, he doesn't lose his form. Dec, can you show a bad one, please? So if he does big pikes, tucks his legs, his body position is going to be in the wrong place. So if he shows you another good one, so his feet stay straight, his shoulders move forwards, and he goes down. Perfect. So now we know that the gymnast can do pull-ups, do their dips, and I'll show a nice support shape. We're going to get into teaching them how to do the technique of a muscle up. The first thing that I would suggest doing is using the play rings, which look like this. They're a nice piece of apparatus you can get from most places on the gymnastic space, where you're able to help the younger gymnasts or even the older gymnasts learn how to do a muscle up. So the first thing that we're going to do is teach Declan how to do a support hold correctly on the rings. So we're going to use the ring like this, put it this way round and attach it onto the P-bars. You want the ring to be turned inwards like this, because this is the position that you're going to want the gymnast to hold their support in. So it's not this way, it's turned like this. So Dec will show you with his hands now. So you put their hands in it. The reason this exercise is good is because the P-bars lock their arms out so you know that they're straight. They can't bend their arms. So here Declan's showing you a really nice straight shape. His elbows are facing forwards. He's still got his tall neck like he did before, and he's able to show you this support shape in a really strong position. Without this, it's really hard for the gymnast when they're first learning it to control the rings. So this is a good starting position. Once we know Dec can hold this for 10 to 20 seconds, we know that he's ready to move on. So once we know that the gymnast can hold a support with the help of the P-bars, keeping their arms straight, the next thing to do is to start the gymnast on the rings now on the P-bars. So it's going to hang on, so we can clip these on. You get lots of different types of rings. Some of them you might need to clip, some of them might be onto a rope. But if you get the rings onto the P-bars at a nice height, the first thing we'll do is a front support. So this is getting them used to the stability, because the rings can move side to side. So make sure when you first do this, there's a crash mat underneath them. As you can see with Dec's arms, his little fingers are still turned in and his arms are locked straight. If they do this correctly, their elbow will not touch the ring, and this is quite hard to do. You probably won't get this when they first start. If Dec shows you what they'll probably start off looking like, it'll start looking like something like this. Then they'll start to straighten their arms out and they'll start to do this. So once they can get a good support hold with their feet lower, the next thing to do is to add a block on top. So if we add the block on, so now this is a little bit higher, he's going to be able to get used to doing this and adding a little bit more weight onto him. So the nice position there, still keeping his back nice and round, body straight, perfect position. Once Dec's got used to being able to do this, we can start getting them used to doing some press-ups in this position. So you probably start with these with their feet a little bit lower when they first start, but it's getting them used to bending their arms and locking them nice and straight. So when the gymnast is comfortable doing these positions, this is going to really, really help them when they get towards doing their full muscle up on the rings. So now the gymnast can do their press ups on the rings, they're getting stronger in this position and doing a nice support hold. The next start is to progress on to doing the dips. So Declan's going to start with his feet a little bit lower first, like we did on the ones before, so it's a little bit easier. You want to still see that same support position, so his elbows locked out, little fingers turned in slightly, so it's a bit diagonal. He's then going to practice doing his dip down with his shoulders forward. forwards and then coming back up again, really nice. So he's gonna go all the way down and all the way back up. So when he does this, his elbows need to be kept really, really close. So he'll show you one more where his elbows flare outwards, and this is what we don't want to see. So his elbows are going really, really wide away from him. This is gonna make it really hard to do a muscle up. His elbows should be locked in, the ring should be really close to his shoulder as he's doing his dip. So once they can do this position, the next thing to do is to add the block to make it a little bit harder. So Dec's gonna put the block on, and we're gonna do exactly the same thing, but he's just gonna try now to do it with his feet a little bit higher. So he goes all the way down and back up again, nice. Perfect. So once the gymnast is comfortable doing dips on the rings, we can start progressing them on to the next stage. So once the gymnast is confident using the blocks, it's time to move the blocks away and get them using the rings without any support from the blocks. So Dec's gonna have a go now doing the support hold. When you start this, you want it to be nice and low. He can just bend his legs. So if he does lose control, because the rings can move side to side, forwards and backwards, you know that it's nice and safe and he can put his feet on the floor. So Dec's gonna show you a nice support hold as he's doing here. Perfectly straight arms, and you can bend their legs to start with. Okay, so Dec is going to show you what it will probably look like when you first start doing this with your gymnasts. So they'll probably have bent arms, they're going to be shaking a lot, and it's going to be quite hard for them to do. But if you've done all the progressions on the blocks, you know that it's going to be safe for them to do. So once he's confident doing his support hold, the next thing to do is to start introducing the dips, which we know that he's strong enough to do because we've just been practicing it on the blocks. So he's going to start there in a nice support, bending down and then pushing back up again. So again, just in the same position with bent legs, nice mat underneath it, and pushing all the way up to a strong support. So now we know that the gymnast is confident on top of the rings, they can do good pull-ups. It's time to start teaching the gymnast how to transition from doing a normal pull-up into a dip. This is done through false grip. So where the gymnast normally would hold on the bar is like this, so their wrist is nice and straight. But when we're doing a muscle up, you need to get the palm all the way over the ring and hold the ring like this. Okay, so my hand is all the way round, my palm is all the way on top of the ring. So then when I do transition on top of the ring, I've got a good support hold. If my hand is underneath like this and I try and transition, my hand will be underneath the ring and my palm is going to be underneath. This means you're not going to be able to get a good support. So Dec's going to show you this hanging underneath so you can get a clear view. So as you can see there, look, his wrists are on top of the rings, okay? So look at that position there. He's nice and strong, and he'll show you a bad one now. And hands underneath. So watch one more time, he's going to transition into it. Hands go all the way on top, okay? Perfect. So now that the gymnast has understood how to do a false grip, it's time to start getting them to build up strength in this position. When the gymnast first starts to do the false grip, it may feel a bit uncomfortable, but over time they will get better at this position. So Dec's going to start off by putting his feet on top, clearly showing his false grip as he's doing there. He hangs down with straight arms, straight body, and he pulls his chest up to the rings. Nice. So as you can see, the whole time he's maintaining his false grip. When the gymnasts are doing this, it's really important to chalk up your hands, making sure that they're keeping that false grip. If the bars aren't chalky or the rings aren't chalky, the gymnast's hands tend to slip. So making sure that when you're using the bars or the rings or any of these apparatus, they've got plenty of chalk on so they make sure their hands don't slip. Right, so now that the gymnast understands how to do a false grip on the rings, it's time to start getting them used to building their strength in this position. When they first start doing this, they're going to feel uncomfortable, it's going to hurt, but after time of doing this and progressing through it, it will get easier. When the gymnast starts, you want to make sure they've got plenty of chalk on, because keeping their hands in this position is quite hard. So Dec's going to hold on to the rings in his false grip that we can see here, place his feet onto a block, and he wants to have his body completely straight in a horizontal position, and he's going to practice doing his pull-ups on top of the ring. So as you can see, he's pulling his chest all the way up to the top of the ring, and he's trying to get his armpit as close to his hand as he can. Perfect. So once they can do a few reps of these, we're ready to move on to the next exercise. Right, so now we know that the gymnast is strong doing pull-ups in false grip, they're able to hold a support, and they're good at doing their dips. It's time to start learning the full muscle up. So we're going to start this by doing it in reverse. This is always a great way to do it because it doesn't require as much strength. So Dec's going to start in support, but using his feet on top of the block again now. He's going to go down to the bottom of his dip and pause. And this is the bit that we're really trying to focus on. So he goes from here, he turns the rings and tries to get into his false grip position and then lowers himself back down, making sure that the gymnast has still got their false grip. So we'll show you that one more time. Watch the rings as he does this. So they're going to twist. So he goes all the way down. And from this position here, the rings are going to turn and twist. And he's going to try and keep his false grip and get his chest to the rings and then slowly lower himself down. So this is a really great way to start practicing for the gymnasts, learning how to do the muscle up position without needing that explosive strength when they're starting. A lot of the muscle up is going to be technique work. So we're going to try and show you some more exercises to teach them the technique so they can progress on to doing the full muscle up. So it's time to start teaching them how to do the muscle up now from hanging. So before we do this, we want to start from halfway. So you can use the P-bars here to get the same feeling that they will do when they go on the rings. And what we're trying to achieve here, so first of all, Dec will go is up and down, just showing us that he's strong enough to hold this position. And what we're trying to achieve is to get him to understand how to move his body weight from backwards to forwards, like we will do when we do our muscle up. So Dec's going to show us the exercise that we're going to do. So he's going to go from his upper arms and then try and get into the dip position. So he starts there, and as you can see, he's now in a nice dip position. He'll push up, and then he'll go back down again into the same position. So he goes down and he moves his body weight backwards, and he goes back again and he goes forwards and then pushes up again. So this movement is really vital when they're learning their muscle up, and it's teaching them how to transfer their body weight from being leaning backwards to leaning forwards. Now we know that the gymnast understands how to transfer their body weight from being leaning backwards to leaning forwards. We're now going to progress this onto the rings and do the full movement. So what we'll do is we'll get the gymnast to start by putting their feet on the edge of the block and bending their legs. This means that they can use their legs a little bit to support them. He's got his false grip, and he's going to show you how to go from a pull-up into the position here. Perfect. So he gets used to pushing all the way up. So he's going to show you again. He goes from here and pulls perfectly all the way up again. So once the gymnast can do it with bent legs, he can start doing it again with straight legs. So now it makes it a little bit harder because he's not able to use his legs as much. And push. Perfect. And if the gymnast manages to do it on here, we can make the blocks a little bit higher as well. So the gymnast now has managed all of the exercises on the low rings, and it is time to get them up on the big rings. Now this does make a big difference, not only because it's a lot higher, because the wires are extremely long when we go onto the rings, and they're going to wobble around a lot more. So we have a few exercises that we can use to help them build up to doing their support hold on the big rings. So you can get an elastic where they hold their elastic onto the rings, they keep their hands on the elastic, and they hold the support. This stops the rings from flying apart. I would always make sure that you build the blocks up so that it isn't as high for them, so they do fall, that there's a nice low block there for them to land on. You can also strap a rope across the rings. This means that the rings again are going to be easier to hold together and they won't fly apart. Once the gymnast is confident in these positions, you can then get them to do a full support, and that'll look like this. So keeping the rings turned in. Perfect. Once the gymnast is confident doing their support hold, we can then get them to do their dips again so that we know that they're confident in that support hold before we get them to do the muscle up. Go all the way down and push back up again. Perfect. So once the gymnast is confident with this, it's time to start having a go at muscle up. So before starting the full muscle up on the rings, I would advise supporting it first. So there are two supports to do. One where you hold their legs in their back. And then one where you hold their hips, which is a bit less support, before the gymnast has a go on their own. So once you've gone through the muscle up with support with the gymnast, it's time for them to start practicing on their own. So you can do this by getting them to jump into their muscle up. So they'll start off with quite a lot of jumps, so you can stand on here and do a big jump. So as you can see, when they first start, they will start leaning quite far backwards so that they can then get that pull to lean forwards like we were practicing earlier. As they get stronger, they will be able to transition more through their strength without as much of a back and forward motion. So we showed Dec now, he's going to do less of a jump this time. So the gymnast then starts to practice with less jump. Once the gymnast is happy to do this with less jump, it's time for them to start practicing a muscle up from bent arms. So as you can see there, he started with bent arms rather than jumping, so this makes it a little bit easier. And then when we're ready, they do the full muscle up from hang. Perfect. So when he first started doing his muscle up, you could see that he leant backwards quite a lot to do the transition. That's perfectly normal when they first start, and it's a great way for them to build up their explosive strength. After this, they will be able to transition where they keep their body nice and still being able to push into their locked out front support. After the gymnast has practiced a few of these reps, they should get stronger in this position. I hope these videos have helped today, and if you need any more help or assistance with your muscle up, make sure to drop us a comment below.